GM everyone, and welcome to Smart Contact, an interview series with the world's most important, influential, and impactful Web3 leaders. This podcast is produced by Web3 Harbour and is supported by Circle, our 2024 Smart Contact lead sponsor. Like and subscribe for more Smart Contacts. I'm Gary Liu, co-founder and CEO of Terminal 3 and chair of Web3 Harbour, and I am so glad to be your host today. We're recording with a live audience, and today's Smart Contacts are Ray Chen, CEO and co-founder of Memeland, and Sandy Peng, co-founder of Scroll. Thank you both for joining our conversation today. Now, we're going to talk about a lot. You guys both run projects that out of Hong Kong that are truly global. And what is really interesting about having both of you guys on the same Smart Contact is that one of you is building infrastructure technology and the other one is working on application technology. At least I would describe Memeland as application technology. I'll ask you, Ray, to tell us what you think or what you want all of us to know Memeland as later. But to have infrastructure tech, world-class infrastructure tech like Scroll, and world-class application tech that powers Memeland, built out of Hong Kong, or at least partially built out of Hong Kong, is a privilege of a city like ours. And it's awesome to have both of you here to talk about what's been happening in the Web3 industry, what's been happening in your companies, and also what is next, not only for our industry, but specifically for our industry here in Hong Kong. The two of you guys, as I've mentioned many times before in public, are two of Hong Kong's most important Web3 leaders. You are reinventing how technology powers enterprises and also powers consumer application. We're going to discuss a myriad of topics today, more so than the title of this session, which is loyalty, engagement, and gamification. There's so many things we're going to get to, so let's strap in and let's get started. I want to start by defining infrastructure tech versus application tech. And more importantly, I think the way that they play with one another and the cycles of development that we have observed for infrastructure tech and application tech in Web3 over the course of the last few years. Sandy, I'm going to start with you. How would you define infrastructure tech versus application tech? And what do these cycles, or what have they looked like over the last few years?
That's a great question. First of all, thank you for the kind introduction. And we're certainly feeling very honored and supported to be here at Web3 Harbour, and great to be here again after a whole year and seeing the community grow. I remember the first time I came to this forum, it was a much smaller community, but the level of enthusiasm and engagement in a place that has so much like vibrancy and cross-cultural, like multiculturalism, and also so much like financial innovation. As kind of the city's heritage. It's just a great privilege to see so many more builders emerge as a part of this ecosystem. So that's all due to Gary and the whole team's contribution. To the infrastructure versus application debate, right? So when we started Scroll about 3 years ago, we saw the bottleneck of Web3 development being predominantly on the infra side. And we saw a huge opportunity to apply zero knowledge research, which was emerging in academia and emerging in bits and pieces and silos within the open source community. And we wanted to kind of productize it and then also like very quickly kind of test the robustness of this software. And so fast forward to 3 years later, we've had our mainnet for live for about a year now. And in terms of uptime, reliability, we're best in class now, like kind of best in the industry. And in terms of cost and efficiency, we're also going to be by far the best in terms of kind of similar metric amongst all the L2s by the end of the year. And so this learning process have been a kind of a phenomenal experience. And I think the pendulum has swung really the other way, where now the infrastructure cost of on-chain transaction has become negligible for most people in the developing world. For anyone living in Hong Kong, and I would say probably most of the developed kind of cities or nations, the cost is not something that anyone would think about. And then it will become cheaper and cheaper as time goes by. So now that opens up the opportunity in the design space for applications to really explore different types of interaction. And the amount of innovation and kind of experimentations that we're seeing is absolutely phenomenal.
Is it picking up? Is application technology development picking up because developers realize that the infrastructure is now there for them to do new things that were impossible a year ago or too expensive a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the Web2 analogy is that every time broadband and internet speed goes up by an order of magnitude, a new generation of applications emerge. So like 5G enabled like video kind of transfers such as TikTok to emerge. And similarly, previously, I would say like 4G has enabled like WeChats of the world to emerge. And we're at this stage where blockchain throughput and also kind of cost of transactions has been improved by an order of magnitude, and it will be improved by another order of magnitude within the next like 3 to 6 months. So the speed of which these improvements are going at the Moore's law level. And so we're ready for the ecosystem to move beyond the first generation of the core DeFi primitives. So the Uniswap, the AMMs, and then the lending, and then the on-chain leverage facilities, I would call them the first generation of on-chain applications. And right now, we're seeing a lot of teams pushing the boundaries and trying to explore what the next generation of application would look like.
You were very humble when you were just giving a very short and concise update on what Scroll's been up to. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to not be humble and just tell us how big is Scroll, how much smart contract activity, how much TVL, what are the metrics that you care most about, how's Scroll doing in them?
The true North Star metric that we care about is how many teams are successful and how many applications are exploring unique applications on Scroll. And by those metrics, I think we're doing probably the best amongst all of our kind of similar categories. Partially it's because of our proximity to ZK tooling and all of the infra that we've built out. And partially it's because of this very supportive kind of ecosystem strategy that we're taking. So essentially, there's been a number of projects that have hit kind of this, like this break-even point, and a number of projects on our ecosystem have reached like 100 mil, 300 mil TVL, which is like a superficial metric, but it means something within the ecosystem kind of application set. And for users who are participating as an LP to the AMMs or as an LP to the lending, we're also seeing huge amounts of incentives being applied by our ecosystem projects. So hopefully the LPs are happy, and hopefully the teams are happy. And for us, we would love to kind of continue making that process more and more efficient, and also building out more and more like innovative tools that can create more surface areas for design.
There's a lot that you just said that I want to dig into later on. Hey, sorry to interrupt the video, but I want to tell you about our 2024 Smart Contact lead sponsor, Circle. Circle is a global financial technology firm that enables businesses of all sizes to harness the power of digital currencies and public blockchains for payments, commerce, and financial applications worldwide. Circle is the issuer of USDC and EURC, highly liquid, interoperable, and trusted money protocols on the internet. Additionally, Circle's open and programmable platform and APIs make it easy for organizations to run their internet-scale businesses, whether it is making international payments, building globally accessible Web3 apps, or managing your internal treasury. Learn more at circle.com. Thank you to our sponsors. I do want to talk about application technology. Ray, did I insult you by calling Memeland application tech?
No. Yeah, I think to me, infra tech is basically smart tech. Basically, you have to be so good, so smart, so innovative that you get all the best builders and founders to build on you and also build with you. Right? Meanwhile, for application tech, to me, it's like stupid tech. You have to make things so simple, so stupid that even my parents know how to use it. Right? So basically, I think that if you call us application tech, is actually an appreciation. Right? And at the same time, I also think infra tech is boring tech, because all you can do is basically, if you want to fall asleep, you read their white paper, right? And for application tag, it's funny tag, right? Because as simple as a meme coin, as simple as NFT, right? You get a lot of people to use that as a first step to get into Web3, right? So I would say, just like in life, you need smart people, you need stupid people, you need like a boring stuff, you also need like a funny stuff.
You've said something I thought was really insightful to me before, which is...
The stupid part or what?
I mean, something else, which is that you believe your job is not to bring Web3 to the masses, but rather the masses to Web3. And in your head, there is a very clear distinction between those two. Bringing Web3 to the masses, not your job, but bringing the masses to Web3, it is your job, right? That's what Memeland is about. Can you clarify for us what you mean by those two terms and why there's a distinction and why you are the latter?
It's actually the exactly opposite of what you just mentioned. A lot of Web3 companies, a lot of Web3 teams, the slogan is, we want to onboard like the next million, next billion people to Web3. But the thing is, right, when you think about what technology is about, it's actually more about how you can make it so simple that, hey, I'm using it without even knowing that I'm using it, right? So the goal, the mission for us is more about how can we bring Web3 to the masses, to the people. So that, okay, they're buying NFT, they don't know they are actually buying it on blockchain, right? They are using it as a payment, right? But I don't have to care about which chain it is. I think we are thinking more about how can we bring the Web3 tech to the people instead of onboarding people to Web3.
This is how good of a listener I am. I completely messed up what you told me, but
I think that's fine. Yeah, I think you are a good customer for our tech. Yeah,
that is very fair.
Just kidding.
That is very fair.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to give you the opportunity to also not be humble and tell us about the progress that Memeland has made. How large is the Memeland community? How many holders of your token are there? What is it that excites you about Memeland today?
Let's take one step back, right? Before Memeland, right? We started a company called NiGet like 16 years ago. I think I met Charles and other friends, basically way before Web3, right? I mean, I could say that I'm more OG than Satoshi, right? In tech, right? not in crypto, right? But at the same time...
Breaking news, Ray Chan is Satoshi.
I wish, then I won't have to come here. Yeah. But anyway.
You still want to.
I still want to.
You still want to.
I won't have to. I still want to. Yeah. And jokes aside, I think we started a company called NiGet. Is the biggest like meme sharing platform on earth, right? We have about 200 million audience across the world, right? And we started to get into Web3 about like 2-3 years ago. At the time, NFT was really, really hot, right? Then and a lot of people asked us, hey, you should launch a token. You should launch an NFT. But we always believe that, hey, maybe we should start to buy some NFT to understand what it is about, right? Before we actually launch something, right? That's why we spend a lot of, not we, but more like I spend a lot of money, right? To buy NFT, to learn more, right? I always joke with our team that, hey, I'm actually, most people, they actually, play to earn, right? It's like you play a game, you earn money. Right? But for me, it's like I pay to learn, right? I pay money, right? So that I can learn. Yeah, and because of that, we started to understand, hey, the power of crypto, right? The power of blockchain and how it can actually affect like community building, right? And because of a new kind of like incentive ecosystem that can be built around it. So we started our Web3 company about 2 years ago, right? We launched 3 NFT collections. We launched our own token as well. The company is called Memeland, right? Right now, our NFT is, I think, it's the number 1 NFT ecosystem in Asia. Sorry, Animoca. Yeah, but anyway, I think we are kind of like number 1 in Asia so far. And then our token, we launched our token last November. Right, we are a Binance launch project. I think we are probably one of the best launches in the last 2 years. So I would say that we're having a good start. And right now, our on-chain holders, I think we have about 800,000 on-chain holders holding our token, which is I think number 6 or number 7 across all the ERC20 token. Yeah, so it's a good start. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that deserves applause. There are a few things I want to dig into again in a little bit, especially about meme coins and their purpose in this entire ecosystem and whether or not that purpose is sustainable. But before we get there, I want to ask, what is the innovation of Memeland? What did you guys get right to end up being such a large community with such a diverse set of token holders, and frankly, so much activity?
Honestly, I think it's not about what we get right. It's more about the competition. It's actually very weak. Right? I think assuming if you have bought some NFT before, right, a lot of these teams, they never deliver. Right? I think they promise that they would deliver, right, but never deliver. It's almost like they're non-professional people trying to build a company, trying to say that they're building a company, right? But when you actually have like real players, right, real builders, right, actually it's quite easy to kind of like stand out. And that's number one. Number two is I think a lot of these teams, they think that, okay, making money in Web3 is super easy, right? That's why they don't care about the finances. They don't manage the treasury very well. So when the bear market comes, when the crypto winter comes, right, basically they got bankrupt, right? And for us as an entrepreneur for over a decade, right, I think we understand that, hey, as a CEO, right, you basically have to make sure that, hey, you set the mission, right, and then you hire good people. And you make sure that you have money at the bank. I think we probably did these things a little bit okay, right? That's why we survive, and that's why we continue to build during the crypto winter. And then when we launch, the market's picking up, and then people are happy that we deliver, right? So I would say that it's not because we're really good. It's because on one hand we are lucky. On the other hand, I think because the space is so new, there are a lot of like non-professional people here, right? So as long as you continue to professionally build stuff and deliver, I think we have a chance. I think anyone who sit here actually have a good chance to win in Web3. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that insight. Let's talk a little bit about the things in the industry. Speaking of, I don't want to call all of these activities that we're about to address unprofessional because it's not, but there are things in the industry because it's so young that seem to constantly break. New innovations that make a lot of people money for short periods of time don't scale, and other people keep following, and then you run into walls, and there are rug projects, and there's a lot in our industry that is bad. It's bad actors, it's broken, it's mechanics that still need to mature. Now, Sandy, you've mentioned to us before that there are 3 key things that a lot of people in your world talk about. And there's still big question marks about whether or not these 3 things are sustainable and whether or not they're the right measurements for success in our industry. And if you don't mind, let me repeat these 3 things that we talked about, which is the airdrop strategy and how many people actually are participate in airdrops, on-chain TVL, whether or not that metric is even real, and just overall there is a lot of activity but seemingly a lack of application innovation that is actually meaningful to consumers, that actually changes the way that we live, we consume, and whatnot. Take any of those 3, or maybe all 3, and tell me a little bit about how you feel about those aspects of our industry and whether or not they're actually broken or they're still in evolution.
The first question is around kind of this unique nature of our industry where distribution and decentralization is achieved through this process called airdrop, where participants who we think of as people who are very adventurous and people who want to risk their capital to test nascent technology and test nascent protocols by providing liquidity are expecting a reward in return for the risk that they're taking. And for those who are in the trenches and who are, on-chain warriors, everyone understands, your wallets get drained and protocols sometimes get hacked. And even if you place your capital in very well-known and well-tested protocols, such as Uniswap and Aave, there are chances of teams rug pulling for good intentions or bad. So you're taking all of these risks, not to mention smart contract risk and also a lot of other kind of risk. So this kind of expectation of reward has built this relatively large and also somewhat professionalized and arguably aggressive industry where it is expected that projects reward them for their participation. In my mind, these kind of participation is fantastic and it helps our new builders. It makes
farming, even the professional teams of farmers that you mentioned. Yeah. It's good for the industry. It's good for the ecosystem.
I think obviously I think teams are reacting to this And the more and more recent examples are teams that are kind of catering more around like so-called real metrics. So metrics such as TVL, that goes into your second question of how real or how fake such things are in terms of users or transactions. These are very easily faked, but TVL is probably the hardest one to fake because it's kind of
total value locked, by the way.
Yeah, total value locked. So for every ETH or every dollar of stablecoin that are reflected or represented on chain, these things are, the criticism of this mechanism is more around that if you had more capital to play with, then pro rata you get rewarded more, but you're also putting more capital at risk. So in terms of access to opportunity, we believe this is kind of like a level playing field. So that's the answer to the second question. So the third question, I think it's a more nuanced one. We talked about the important DeFi pieces that are legacy of the last cycle that have remained till now that we believe have real value, whether it is providing affordable on-chain leverage or providing accessible to long tail assets that wouldn't otherwise be accessible anywhere else in the world. We're seeing a lot of incremental improvements around that. So on-chain order book decks, and also we're seeing, so I was saying, as the infrastructure improved 10x, we're seeing a lot more fancy designs to expand on some of these innate needs. So for example, there are like fancier versions of on-chain lending that are emerging, such as Morpho, and there are fancier versions of on-chain AMM that are more efficient, like Ambient, and we're also seeing new applications leveraging the ZK tools that are built. And so, for example, there are ZK L3 order book dexes that provides much more efficient markets for professional traders. And there are tools that we've built, such as Canvas, which is an on-chain reputation system where your on-chain reputation, how mature you are as an investor or as a meme coin builder or as a meme coin connoisseur, you can track these reputation and learning experiences grow. And that can hopefully lead to like prediction markets or uncollateralized on-chain lending. All of these surface areas are just starting to open up due to these kind of new innovation that came in literally in the last year or so.
I fashion myself as someone that knows quite a bit about the industry. Every time I listen to you talk, I feel really dumb. So I'm going to have to go replay that part and figure out what I did understand and did not. I mean, it just reminds me of how quickly this space moves. That the cycles of change and new innovation are so tight. If you miss one event and one conference, you've missed the zeitgeist, you've missed a meta, and suddenly you're talking a different language. You're talking what oftentimes becomes an anachronistic language than the rest of the industry. Is this speed of innovation good for us? Like, should there be at some point less volatility, more stability on the technologies and the actual avenues of innovation that matter, and people doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on the things that are sustainable? Or do you guys expect over the course of the next several years, we're still going to see this speed of cyclical change?
The age for infra arms race, in my opinion, is already over. I think we're the last of the ZK infra general purpose protocols that will appear. And I think after us, there hasn't been anyone that amassed the amount of capital and talent, and it's been at least a good year or two. And I think the age of infra arm race is essentially over.
But infra arm race, you're specifically talking about protocol level, L1s, also L2s. That's the infra war that you're specifically referring to?
Yes. So there will be infra wars in terms of application, and there will be a lot of incremental improvements on the peripheries of what matters in terms of infra. So those things will continue for years and years. And but in terms of the core aspects of protocol design and what is needed to support breakthrough application, I think most of those things are done. And there will be consolidation, and there will be kind of changes changes of the guard as new team come on, and just as we overtook some of our much bigger peers over the last 2 or 3 years, I think there might be kind of more differentiation between the teams that have momentum and that have built the kind of the talent density to really kind of gain bigger market share. But I think for a new fundamental core like infra player to emerge, it's going to get harder and harder.
If you were to guess, with regard to the consolidation that you just mentioned, how many layer one true settlement protocols are we going to end up with? And how many scalability layer twos does the world actually need?
So the layer one question is a more nuanced one. Arguably, if you prioritize decentralization and settlement and data availability as the core role of the L1, then arguably that battle has already been fought and won. It's pretty hard for a new L1 to come in and challenge the positioning of Ethereum in terms of decentralization, mindshare, just like because of the years and years of trust and consensus that Bitcoin had built, it's pretty hard to find a new protocol that challenges that in terms of as like the digital gold asset positioning. And so the role of the decentralized ledger and the decentralized computing process, I think that is very well owned and maintained by Ethereum as the layer one. There will always be room for incremental improvement, and there will always be room for kind of specific application use case. But in terms of a general purpose world computer, in some sense, I think that battle has already been fought and won. In terms of how many L2s there will be in the world, I think we've reached a place of kind of near saturation for L2s. So there's been a proliferation of L2 arms race over the last 2 or 3 years, to the extent now where you're getting hundreds and hundreds of different L2s. But those are kind of the superficial metrics from far away. But when you look closely to the industry, the number of teams that are building original tech and building fundamental tech, that number hasn't changed. So in my mind, in our minds, it's just Arbitrum and Starkware and ZK Sync and maybe a few others, but the number has not increased amongst the but we are seeing a lot of application and also kind of industry specific experimentations on the infrastructure. So I would call it kind of consumerizing of infra place. There's a lot of fun stuff going on, but in terms of the how many L2s are needed, I think that's hard to say. I think we will still see a number, and just like how many cloud providers there will be in the world, there will be a few, but it's not going to be in the hundreds, in my opinion.
Ray, let me warn you, I'm about to ask a somewhat convoluted question because I want to sound smart. It's not going to, though. We've discussed this before, that the term crypto is a convenient catch-all term. But for its convenience, what it has done is conflated a bunch of different asset types that to a layman may look the same, but are fundamentally different. Fundamentally different mechanics, fundamentally different reasons why they should or should not hold value. Distribution is different. The utility is different, all these things, right? Like off the top of my head, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but I would categorize at the very least there's 6 different types of crypto. There's stores of value like Bitcoin, smart contract protocols like Ethereum, utility protocols and the tokens that power those utility protocols. I would include Filecoin as one of those. Scalability protocols like Scroll. There is fiat reference stablecoins, which we're getting to know relatively well here in Hong Kong. And then there are meme coins. And all of them are actually, to those of us in the industry, fundamentally different. Does that differentiation actually matter for the scale of Web3 as an industry? Like, does it matter that the rest of the world understands that these things are different? Does it matter that regulators understand that these things are different?
Let me take a step back, right? And I'm filling like the application form for my son for the pre-nursery. Right, on the job part, right? The industry, which industry that I can pick from? It's like IT, right? But when you talk about IT, if you ask the insiders, right, they know that IT covers a lot of things, right? Maybe infrastructure, maybe building app, maybe building a telecom company, right, and stuff, right? And I think to the industry people, to the people who work in the industry, it matters a lot, right? Because hey, I'm building an internet company. I'm not a software vendor, right? But to the outsider, right, they all think that you can fix computer, right? So I would say that it depends who you are talking to. Right? But ultimately, right, I believe that tech is just a means to an end. The real question is, what are the problems that we are trying to solve, right, with all this new technology? Right? I remember one of the podcasts that I listened to Yet, Andy Morgan's chairman, right, talking about it is, hey, it's actually kind of like when we talk about blockchain Web3, it's actually more about going back to the origin of internet, which is make it open, make it everyone can build, everyone can kind of own their data, own their stuff, right? I believe that is a very accurate description when I think about this. That's why personally, I don't want to call our company a crypto company. We would love to call ourselves a blockchain company or a Web3 company, because it sounds less about money, but more about the technology. Yeah, because if it is about money, right, then I think, what's the point? Right? I mean, not what's the point, but more it sounds too materialistic. Right? But for us, if we are really trying to solve problems, right, then the real question is, hey, how can we use the new tech to solve the existing problem, or to solve existing problem better? Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that capital for a little bit, because capital is a big C word. It is at moments very, very welcome in the industry, at other times incredibly inconvenient. What we've seen over the course of the last few months is there's this very specific way for capital to flow into our industry, which is VC-backed tokens that have weathered a few really, really bad months. That VC-backed tokens have generally not done well. Okay? Now, I've had numerous conversations with industry insiders about why, and I think if I ask 10 different people about why VC-backed tokens have not done well, I'll get 11 opinions. Do you guys have cogent opinions about why VC-backed tokens have not done well over the last few months? Are they going to come back and do well in the future? Or is this a mechanism for capital infusion into our industry, for investment in our industry, that is somewhat broken and actually needs to be reinvented?
This is a very interesting question. I think we were talking about this before the stage. It's kind of like office space. It's kind of okay, whether it's good to have a closed office, right? Or whether it's good to have an open space, whether it's good to have a remote office, right? It's less about the format. It's more about what exactly is the company is doing, right? I think there are VC-backed token that can do well, right? But there are also kind of very community-driven project that sucks, right? But people tend to group things so that it's easier for them to explain why they lose money, right? So I believe that it's just another narrative, right? And to be honest, if you talk to a lot of industry people who really know stuff, they actually don't care about whether it's VC backs, whether it's a community driven, right? It's more about, do they have real user, right? Do they have real applications? Do they have solving real problem? I think that part is always more important. When we look at, whether let's say if you invest in a stock, you only check out whether they have an office, right? Then of course you are bound to lose money, right? So I think who is funding that project, I think that's less important, right? What exactly is the project trying to solve? I think that part is more important.
Can I be a cynic here? Do you really believe that a high proportion of crypto investors are that sophisticated?
One thing that I always believe in is the best thing about Web3 is money. The worst thing is also about money, right? So that you attract all kind of people, right, including scammers, including people who don't believe in it, including people who only try to make money, right? But at the same time, also attract a lot of real builders, right? So when you have a mix of this kind of people, things will get messy. I think that's almost impossible to sort it out, right? That's why sometimes a lot of people say that, we need government, right, to kind of settle the regulation. I think that part is probably kind of necessary in the long run. Because if we want to protect the general public, right, I think certain kind of guidance and regulation is probably needed, especially these days, right? This is actually kind of funny when you think back, crypto, right? Bitcoin, right? It was launched during the financial crisis. And this kind of fighting against the traditional finance. But these days, the main reason for Bitcoin to pump is because it has an ETF, right? And people, why believe in Bitcoin? Oh, because it finally is real, right? Even my mother-in-law talks about Bitcoin, right? Because, okay, they get listed, right? And then so that all these like Web3 company, Web3 stocks, they are not scammers anymore. All this narrative will keep changing. But at the same time, I think for builders, right, we know that, hey, it doesn't matter what the market says, right? It's more about what we believe in and what we are trying to solve, yeah.
Sandy, in our previous conversation, you brought up that there is a difference between, or at least you perceive there to be a difference between the life cycle of a utility token versus that of a meme coin. Can you explicate on that for the podcast and talk a little bit about your thoughts around these life cycles? What do you observe to be the difference between these two different types of assets?
I mean, I think it's very apparent that we're heading into the decade of meme coins, which is why I think of Scroll as a
full decade.
Yeah, I think of Scroll as a ZK meme coin. And we hope anyone that likes that meme and likes to make a punt on that meme.
Let's go.
Well, yeah, we'll think about participating.
Ray, what about your thoughts here? I mean, you are king of memes and clearly king of analogies based on tonight's conversation. So from a life cycle standpoint, do those two, are meme coins really that different?
I think it's almost like the two spectrum, right? The two end of the spectrum. When you look back on the crypto history, right, there are a few like narrative that's always like happening, right? Number one is like infrastructure, right? Number two is basically meme coins, right? And then all these like GameFi, SocialFi, whatever fi, right? It's basically they comes and go, right? Depending on what people are talking about at that time, right? But there are always meme coins. There are always like infrastructure that's getting built. Right? With or without like an analogy, right? I believe that, of course, people love to use tech, right, to do the most serious stuff. But also most of the people, right, especially our children, right, what do they use tech for? TikTok, right? So I'm not saying that TikTok is a meme coin, but I'm saying that it's less about the tech itself, but more about what we want, right, from the technology. Right? I think if you are able to buy crypto these days, just like if you are able to afford a phone these days, that means that you're living a pretty good life in a way that, most of your real problem is solved, right? So that, hey, you spend time, you figure out some way to kill time. I think for meme coin, it kind of like embrace the degenerates, right? The character of the degens in a way that, instead of reading the white paper, maybe it's easier to just buy a ticker. Right? When Elon Musk talk about certain stickers, right? Then I just buy this, right? And then, I know that this will go to fail. This will go to zero. But maybe I'm early enough so that my friend can be my exit liquidity, right? So I feel like this is why meme coin get a lot of attention, because it's almost like built in the viral mechanism there. Yeah.
I feel like, Ray, we need to start referring to you as sarcastic Yoda from here on out. I'm going to move to a completely different topic, and it's a very important one for all of us, because we all live in Hong Kong. We've chosen Hong Kong not only as home, but as a place from which we are building our businesses. We're also sitting here with Web3 Harbour and a Hong Kong Web3 community that is growing and that is increasingly hosting global Web3 leaders in our city, because this is an incredible place to build. At least I think so. Sandy, I want to start with you. You go back and forth between mainland China and Hong Kong. You know both of these markets, distinctly different markets, certainly for our industry, very, very well. Tell us why you still live in Hong Kong, why you're building out of Hong Kong, why we can call Scroll a Hong Kong project.
I've been living in Hong Kong for about 12 years now. So a part of why Scroll is built from Hong Kong is just inertia. And having an environment where it's like very safe compared to a lot of the US cities, and also very international compared to a lot of the mainland cities. It's just somewhere where I've built my network and all my friends are here, and great infrastructure all around, and very kind of clear rules around kind of blockchain building engagement. And so there's a number of reasons, and I feel we've been fortunate in terms of kind of discovering talent through on-chain forums. And so it's been great to kind of be able to run some of our core functionalities out of Hong Kong while being able to engage with talents globally. globally. So Scroll now has contributors from about 26 different countries. And the reason we're able to do that is because Hong Kong is such an international hub and enables us with the kind of the infrastructure and support to be able to build a truly decentralized org like this.
Ray, what about you? Did you ever think about, even after all these years of 9gag being really a Hong Kong company, did you ever think about setting up and building Memeland somewhere else?
Yeah, right before the government said that crypto is okay in Hong Kong, right? We actually set up a company in Singapore, right? I think that was the only moment that we thought about, hey, maybe we need to move, right? Because we want to do things legally, right? And that's the only moment, right? But I mean, as a guy born and raised in Hong Kong, studied in Hong Kong, I have to say that I kind of like Hong Kong, right? Especially when my parents are here, right? So I think I literally, Hong Kong is my home, right? But I think that being said, remove all this sentimental stuff, right? I think it's quite rare for a city, for a place where the leader comes out to say that, hey, okay, we are supporting Web3. Right? I think that part is actually very rare. I think that's number one. Number two is basically all these existing strength that Hong Kong has, right? A simple taxation system, right? No capital gain. I think that part is very, very important, right? And then the financial infrastructure is already in place because at the end of the day, Web3 is still very much related to finance, right? So I think this is also the second part. And then the third part is, of course, for example, we have industry leader like Animoca, right, to be based in Hong Kong. I think that part is also very important, but not that many people talk about it, right? Because at the end of the day, a place is not just about the government, it's not just about the people, right? But more about what are the companies that are actually based there, right? For example, when you look at Silicon Valley, right, you can name all these best tech company there, right? And right now, Animoca, right, is like the leader in Web3, in NFT, in token. What's the last time that you actually have a global leader which is based in Hong Kong, right? I think that part is actually something that people kind of ignore. But I think about that, it attracts a lot of talent, right? And also, it makes it easier for us to tell people that, okay, this place is okay for us to build a crypto company, for a Web3 company, because there's already a very big Web3 company here. There are not that many chances that, okay, we can provide something unique to China, to the mainland, that, hey, this is something that, we actually can become the hub, right, to make it really, really big and touch the world, right? I think this is something that why a lot of my builder friends, right? I mean, due to COVID, right, they moved to Singapore, but right now they're moving back to Hong Kong. On one hand, because of the change of the stance of the government. On the other hand, Hong Kong is pretty fun, right? Singapore is pretty boring. Yeah, so I think that part is also very important. Yeah, because crypto people, right, other than looking at the screen all the time, you actually want to have fun. And a lot of crypto people, they actually, after when they get rich, right, they focus a lot on health, right? So Hong Kong, you have all the sea, all the beach, and I think that part is also very, very important.
So not only is Hong Kong a more fun city, it's also a healthier city than Singapore. That's what we're
I don't know whether it's healthier when you're working in crypto, right? But at least the environment is healthier, yeah.
I think in Hong Kong, you can go out at 2 a.m. and still find a drink somewhere. And I think that's not something you can do.
Yes, I think that's
very important to the crypto crowd, obviously.
Yeah. Because crypto never sleeps, right? I think that part is quite important. Yeah.
It's been 22 months, or nearly 22 months, since the government in the city took to the stage at Hong Kong FinTech Week 2022 and announced really a path forward for crypto and for Web3 in town. And since then, to your point, Ray, our chief executive here, the financial secretary, other government officials, regulators have pretty consistently, and policy addresses, budget addresses, every opportunity they get to talk about what will solidify Hong Kong's future, they bring up Web3. Okay. In those 22 months, there's been great progress, but we're all realists here. We're builders. So we're known to complain because things are never good enough. So what are those things that the city still needs to get right, needs to do better, needs to do faster to make sure that this mantle that we've honestly kind of given ourselves, which is like Asia's Web3 hub, is true and that we can grow that into becoming a true global Web3 innovation hub? Sandy, you want to take that first?
Yeah, sure. I think from the builder's perspective, what Hong Kong already provides plenty of is regulatory certainty. and also a very clear regulatory framework. Where this arena could be improved is that if we could see more adventurous and slightly more creative policy making, I think that would encourage more builders to jump into the ring.
What does that look like? What does creative, inventive policy making look like? And is there a city, is there a place that you feel like has that and an example that we can learn from?
I don't want to specify anything, but I think I can definitely see a lot of super creative Web3 talent aggregating around New York. And New York, I would say, is a similar city, which is like the hub of the financial center. And it has a lot of culture, has a lot of, it's becoming more and more techy in the sense that Hong Kong has a history of being the financial center and is trying to be more and more techy. And so I think on one hand, if there could be, friendlier kind of immigration policies for technical talents, devs specifically, and secondly, more culture building and more encouragement for people who are pushing the envelope a little bit in terms of on the boundaries of what would be considered kind of acceptable. I think that would be great. I think Hong Kong errs on the side of conservative policy making still, but the fact that whatever policy or sandbox is created is pretty consistent, that's already fantastic kind of globally in terms of where a hub and regulatory relation need to be.
Ray, what about you? What do you think we could do better here?
I think there are always some new narratives in crypto, right? But one thing that all the narratives need is actually liquidity. That means like money. Right, and I think it's still very hard for crypto, right, to on-ramp, off-ramp. That's why you still read from the news, okay, some guys got robbed, right, because they tried to exchange like USDT and then in some like shady alley and stuff, right? I think that part is still the most basic but most like fundamental, most important thing that can be improved. I think at least I heard that, okay, the government is trying to issue license for OTC and stuff like that. I think maybe that's a starting point. Right, and then also, for example, how can the crypto exchange working with virtual banks or maybe even like traditional banks, right, to allow easy on-ramp, off-ramp, right? That means on-ramp, off-ramp means like exchange crypto into fiat, right? I think that part can be a game changer because ultimately that's the biggest friction in crypto, right? Because once you get into it, you start to taste, this is good stuff, right? This is interesting, right? This is actually good to hold Bitcoin, right? To buy Ethereum. I think that would be the biggest help to the Web3 businesses, to the Web3 industry. Yeah, I think it's as simple as that. Yeah.
I love that the infrastructure tech leader brought up culture and creative applications, and our meme guy brought up infrastructure, technology, and policy. So this is the combination. This is the dream team. This is what Hong Kong has to offer, huh?
We're huge fans of Ray and what he's built in Memeland. And to kind of riff off what he's been saying about Animoca, I think Memeland and Animoca has done a fantastic job in terms of making crypto cool. And that's something that's not particularly our expertise, but it's really important in terms of building community and building social acceptance and just getting more visibility and mind share amongst those people who are not like professional builders. But yeah, I think.
Yeah, that's why Animoca is our investor. Sandy is also our investor. That's why the smart contract refers to Sandy.
I'm shilling my own bag here.
Yeah, exactly.
Course.
I love it. Well, I personally think both of you guys are incredibly cool and so glad that you joined us today for our Smart Contact. This conversation could go on for another couple of hours. We're definitely going to have you guys back and dig further into infrastructure and memes as well. Thank you so much for joining us today for Web3 Harbour Smart Contact.
Thank you, guys.